Good afternoon, everybody. We should be live now. Usual kind of drill, guys. Give us a like, give us a love if you love us, obviously, and let us know if you can see and hear us okay. This afternoon, I am joined by former selling legend and current software founder legend, Al Carlton, who is joining us from Texas at a very ungodly hour. So welcome, Al, and thanks for making the effort to speak to us whilst it's still dark outside.
Yeah. Hi, folks. Yep. Thank you for inviting me on. Should be fun.
Yeah, it should be. We're going to dive into a lot with Al. He's given us license to ask lots of personal questions. No, I'm only joking. He hasn't given us that much license, but he's given us the opportunity to be able to dive deep into chats, hopefully in a slightly different way and looking at it from a slightly different angle as opposed to the usual kind of seller story, because obviously Al has launched a different type of business and, you know, achieved a great level of success. So I also want this to be an inspiration for people, for anyone who may or may not be, you know, looking at things outside of Amazon or within Amazon and how they can diversify. So I want to look at that. But yeah, everyone's jumped on all at once. Hi, guys. We've got Cindy. Alison's joined us, presumably from another room. Claire's joined us. By the way, if you can't see people's names, it's the software Al. That's why I kind of log into the different comments so we can see who is saying what. Can you hear us okay, guys? Fingers crossed that you can. Someone said loving the top. I assume that's directed at you, Al, not me.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's Jade. Jade's said that. Let's just have a quick look. Where are the comments? Finally, I've got some names. So we've got Debbie, we've got Claire. Cindy's joined us. Afternoon, Simon. We're waiting for a few people to come out. Lee's jumped on. We've also got the other group that I've got to monitor the comments on as well. So I'm just going to jump into that one, depending on where you're watching us from, of course. So just while we're waiting for a few more people to come on, guys, make sure you give us a like and a love so that notification goes out as well. Oh, Hayden's joined us as well. He's on the other stream. Afternoon. Sean's joined us. Just while we're getting kind of started, Al, like I said, direction of where we're going to go and where we're going to end up in this chat. But for anyone that doesn't know you, do you want to just give us an overall of your whole life story in about 2 minutes? Do you want to give us a kind of introduction to you and how you are kind of not necessarily sat where you are now, but what kind of brought you to the first point of discovering Amazon and business and being an entrepreneur?
Well, okay, I'll try and keep it to a few minutes. So, like a lot of entrepreneurs, you start young, you start early. So, like my very first thing was actually doing a magic show at my house when I was like probably 7 or 8, and charging people to come and see it. And it was a really hot day. It was in a garage in Hull. I remember like selling a glass of water for a penny. We started off with orange juice for 2p and a glass of water for a penny. And my mum made me give the money back afterwards. He said you're not allowed to sell water.
She clearly didn't have the entrepreneurial spirit.
But no, she wasn't really. But I was like at school, I had I did a tuck shop. So I used to cycle to the wholesaler, buy sort of boxes of like Mars bars and sweets and things. Then I had a big silver bag that I used to sell them at school. And I was making about £40 a week at one stage. And this would have been, I'm just going to show my age now, like over 30 years ago. Quite a few years over 30. And but one thing that actually taught me about return on investment. So, I mean, actually, it was more about profit margin because I didn't really consider what I was spending. It was more like what I was selling and how much I was making.
Yeah.
But then that also got me into an early case of bundles, where doing like penny sweets in a bag was much more profitable than selling Mars bars.
Yeah.
And it's really, it taught me all sorts of things about theft, about sort of making connections can be quite useful to prevent theft, and just general business. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs start, like I am certainly not the only person that sort of sold sweets at school, but I've got another friend who sold cigarettes and another friend who sold booze and what have you. So I was fairly clean.
Yeah, no, I was the dark side. I was the cigarette seller. Sorry, I was that one.
It's probably more profitable, to be fair.
Supply and demand, definitely.
Yeah. So left school, started working in a bank. When I was in the bank, I also had a business on the side, which was the bank was in the Hull City Centre, and then there was a market around 3 days a week, right in the sort of square just around the corner from the bank. So we opened with a girlfriend at the time, had a market stall selling ethnic clothing, jewellery, like smoking paraphernalia. And one of the wholesalers we used was in Barnsley, so I used to go to Barnsley to pick up these, buy ethnic clothing and whatever. And that kind of taught me about VAT, where basically first time we had to pay VAT, next time we went there, sort of met Leo and he said, if you pay cash for 50% of it, we won't charge you VAT and pay cash for the other half. So I like that business. Yeah, it was a young business and it didn't work out, but you learn a lot by doing it. So I like, it was quite funny because I'd be working in a bank in like suit and tie, then I'd be like lunch hour, walk to the market stall, and you can probably imagine the sort of clients you'd get at that market stall. It was fairly comical in sort of hindsight. But then left the bank and went to university as a mature student because I've always been into computers and tech. So I wanted to get a job in that area. So went to university, did software engineering.
Right.
But like I'd always loved computers before that. Like I'd been programming ZX Spectrum and sort of started early on. Just as soon as I got that, was to create things, which was great. So went to university, mature student, the placement year at IBM. In my final year, my daughter was born. So my final year at uni, I was like a stay-at-home dad. I sort of finished my university sort of degree from home for the majority of it. And that's when I sort of set up my first online business, which was it was a programming website of tutorials and articles about how to program. Like, there's all sorts of stories behind that, but that's where I made my first dollar online as such, which came from like paid media. So I had like advertisements on the site. Also did sort of some affiliate links to Amazon for book reviews. Because Amazon were actually the first affiliate program out there, which is Amazon has been the first in quite a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely.
So as I didn't make any sort of real money from it, but I remember when I made my first dollar, it was great. It's first sort of dollar, sort of like, and it was also like I'd created all the content, and like one of the nice things about making money online is you often see the money coming in afterwards when you're not working. So you can create this content, and then it was a trickle. It was certainly not anything major, but it was just nice to see you're getting paid for something that you've done. So finished uni, moved down to sort of Newbury near Reading, got a sort of job in doing software engineering stuff, which is great. Kind of left that site on the side. It just sort of ticked over. A few of the stories I got to do the business with that site, and yeah, okay, I'm sure past 2 minutes already. So
no pressure. Like Sean said there, you're a legend. You can talk as long as you want, even if I don't say a word. All
right. So doing financial systems and passport systems, and I became like senior software engineer and like a sort of software architect. And I was getting paid what I thought at the time was exceedingly good money. I wasn't happy because like I wanted to work for myself. That was always my ambition from like a very young age. And then I got to the point where the only way I could actually leave that job, because I had sort of financial sort of commitments, I had a daughter and mortgage at that time and what have you. So the only way I was, what can I do online? So then I started looking at what else I could do online. I had just a little bit of experience before with this site that I created. I basically threw a lot of shit at walls to see what would stick.
I love that technical term.
Well, I think a lot of people, you don't know what's going to work.
No,
you don't know what's going to work at the time. So I did a lot of different things. And like some of them were quite successful, some of them were complete failures, but I hit a home run. So But basically, what I was doing, I did created a sort of technology site. We did reviews. We did very well with paid media. We did a lot with affiliates. So I was able to take a sabbatical from my job, which the firm wasn't particularly happy about at the time. But I could really sort of focus my time to making sort of my online business work.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like 3 months off where I just sort of really just hammered it. And then by the time my 3 months was up, by both hard work and a bit of luck and being in the right place at the right time, I was able to replace my income. So then after my sabbatical, went back to doing proper coding stuff. And like I've been writing I've been in my code editor writing technical articles for my other site between writing code. So I eventually left that job to just focus purely on what I was doing. But I, like, as I think we all know, like when you're working online, you haven't got the same sort of security as when you're working for somebody else. Really, you've got more security because it's in your hands, it's in your control.
Yeah.
But it still feels more secure when you've got a sort of a proper job as such. So what I did then, I left. My income was good, but I didn't think it was guaranteed. So I actually moved up to Nottingham, sold a house, did pretty well in the housing market. So I made sure I had enough money set aside that it would last me for a year. If everything went pear-shaped, I could live for a year. And my opinion was, I can set up something else in a year to survive. So that's what I did. So I moved up to Nottingham, kept working on different sites. Money was good, revenue was good, and I don't live a particularly sort of. I've always lived very much under my means, and I effectively was mortgage free at the time. I think I had an offset mortgage, which was 100% offset, and I just kept sort of scribbling money away as such, and more living off the actual investment rather than the revenue that's coming in. And it's a nice position to be in, but you do have to be pretty not frugal as such. I don't think you should just sort of make money for the sake of making money. I think you need to enjoy your life and do what you want to do. But on the opposite to that, I also think, you want to much rather live off the actual investment income rather than the revenue coming in from a business. So life was good for quite a while. I became quite a big Amazon affiliate. Didn't know you could sell on Amazon or anything like that. I thought, Amazon affiliate and advertising revenue. And then at one point, I got a massive sort of Google slap, which basically meant I lost a lot of my traffic. I lost a lot of my revenue. So then I was looking then there was my other, like my 1 year fund to find something else to do kind of kicked in. So I went from one point, my main site, I was offered, I think, 2 million for it. I turned it down thinking, it's just going to keep growing. It's just going to keep growing. And I just 100% outsourced it by then with a team of writers. Google slap. And I lost the passion for it. So I couldn't, I'd like to think I could have brought the traffic back, but the passion was kind of gone. So I was looking for other things that I could do. So it was time to throw a lot more shit at the walls again. So threw a lot of shit at different walls, and the sort of selling on Amazon kind of stuck. So that's where my Amazon sort of journey started, which this is going to be about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
This is about the age of the wife, Alison, because she remembers all the dates. So I don't remember dates. Dates, names, holidays, they all kind of blend into one. So that's when I got my year to find something else. So then learnt about Amazon FBA, because like a lot of people, they don't know there are other sellers on Amazon. I think that's still the case to the day.
Mm-hmm.
So then my Amazon sort of journey sort of started, where like a lot of people selling used books, selling whatever you've got lying around the house. So I did that first. Then started doing a bit of RA with the Argos 3 for 2 sale is quite a funny one where I was looking, I think I was using FBA Wizard at the time. So looking at what deals there were. I remember these massive Millennium Falcons, they were huge. And I remember sort of driving to an Argos in a real dodgy area of Nottingham, going in, buying them, and I think I was buying 5, and they came back with a price, and I'm one of these people. If somebody undercharges me, I will say, and like they undercharge me. I'm like, no, that's not right. You should be charging me this much. I said, oh no, it's a 3 for 2 sale on, and I'm like, excuse me, these were profitable before. Yeah, so a 3 for 2 sale, and I bought 5 because that's really smart. but yeah, I remember buying these, and it just. In hindsight, I made money on them, but nowhere near as much as I thought it would because of it massively oversized and didn't have sort of SAS at the time to tell me what these sort of fees would have been. But that's how my Amazon journey sort of started, where very small doing the used books. And I didn't buy used books, it's just books I had in the house. And like the first used book I ever sold was 7 Habits by sort of Steve Covey. And I've had a lot of business books from early days, but that's other businesses. But anyway, so then grew from there. So kitchen table. Then one of my friends had a unit nearby, and he offered for me to use some of his space. And I'd met some wholesalers and distributors at the spring fair. So I was able to then order some from a distributor. We ordered about a pallet load, and now I had a friendly unit that I could get stuff delivered to. That was great. So I started sort of doing more wholesale and distributor sort of goods. That then took me into getting my own unit, and it was like about a mile away from the house, which was great. So yeah, so my Amazon business sort of grew from there. I wouldn't say we were a huge seller, but in the 4 years we've done a few million. I employed somebody to do RA, bought a white van that she could drive around doing it. And like what I've done with all of my businesses, even when I've had a bloody school tuck shop, was I've created software on the side to help with that business. So this is how SellerAMP came about. I was creating software just about from the very beginning when I first started selling. And the first software I created was like to do my inventory and profit analysis. Yeah. So it was more like Inventory Lab. I think I shared your Matt. Years
he
ago.
always remembers that. He always remembers that.
And that was like the original side of it, was doing that. And then SAS was just a profit calculator. That was just part of it. And then various things happened where, I'll be very upfront. Like when I was selling in Q4, it was so stressful. Like I think it's the second Q4, I practically had a breakdown just from like working so much, and it was hard. And I needed a way to sort of switch my mind off. In the next one Q4, I did the international keeper charts, which was I did it as a free web app initially, just so you could display a keeper chart from each of the different marketplaces. And basically, I wrote it like I went to the pub after work. I say work after warehouse, and just designed it there. Went back from the pub and coded it in an afternoon. And all it was, we just displayed keeper charts of all the European marketplaces. It's just kind of useful. And somebody asked me, "Oh, can you do this in a Chrome extension?" And I'm like, "Not done that before, but yeah, I reckon we can." So I put it in a Chrome extension. Then somebody else said, "Oh, can you do it in a mobile app?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can do that." But then I'm obviously think, well, I've already got this profit calculator, so I could put our profit calculator into the extension into the mobile app. And that's how SAS originally sort of came about. And my girl that was doing shopping, she used to call me up asking, "How much of this Lego can I buy?" And then I'd be checking on this. And well, she's got the mobile app. She doesn't need to call me. We can tell her how much she should be paying and what like that. So a lot of it was developed from the experience of being a seller, and it was like being used straight away. So that's how it sort of first started. Then Amazon changed the rules, saying you can't use Amazon data and keeper data in the same application. So they had to make the decision: do we keep with the full inventory analysis and profit analysis, or do SAS, the sort of profit calculator side of things? And it was a case of like, well, profit calculator is already out there. We'll do that first, and once that's finished, then we'll go back to doing the inventory analysis. And then SAS took off, and it was like, the other one went on the back burner. So it's like a lot of things. Your plans change. Like it's good to have a plan, but to be able to go back and adapt it. And because we were about a month away from launch when Amazon changed the terms of service, and it's like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be reliant on the Amazon API if they could switch me off at any minute because I'm using the Keeper API. And for analysis, like your historical data from Keeper is so important.
Oh, absolutely.
So, a bit longer than 2 minutes, but that's okay.
No, honestly, there is so much there to unpack that I want to dive into and kind of go into and ask some specific questions about it. I was writing notes as I was doing it. I've got a good memory, but I can't pick out everything. Funnily enough, Matt Cromie just said he should have bought shares at that time when he when you originally spoke to him. That would have been the smart thing to do. Alison's also on, and she's jumped in and said it was actually 2015. So yeah, that's when you first started. So just to clarify that, I think what was interesting, and this is why I want everyone to know, obviously, Al, you've been around, you're an OG, and what I consider to be like an OG Amazon seller, because you were a very experienced seller when I came into the market. And anyone that's still around from that sort of period of time, I'm considered to be on the experience side of things. But you were 2 years ahead of us, presume, on that time when there was so much more changes. But anyone that can remember Tesco Direct and the Argos 3 for 2, that qualifies you as an OG, definitely, in the Amazon space. So kind of going back and talking about, and thank you for going into that level of detail as well. I think what you've talked about there, and some of the things I definitely wanted to achieve from this live and talking with you, is the inspiration that people can get from listening to something like this, but also the realistic side of running businesses, because we all know about the TikTok gurus. We all know about everyone saying, oh, you can do this and get your Lambo overnight. But what you've talked about there, from listening from an outsider's point of view, is almost a blueprint of a lifetime of compounding skills and being able to use those skills that you've gathered over the years in various different ventures, albeit working for the man or working for yourself, to build what was a successful Amazon seller business, taking it into that, and then obviously evolving that into SAS at a later stage. So would you agree with that? Would you say that your success now has been because of all the things that you've learned, all of the trials that you'd made, all of the failures that you've had, that everyone else has had? Would you say that that's been the key to your success?
Yeah, yes, probably. It's funny you should mention that, 'cause I'm doing a talk at the event next month at as well with Amanda. That's what I'm going to be talking about, is like these sort of lessons from hindsight that I've kind of picked up along the way. And like, I don't want to spoil my talk, but one of the sort of key things is like, you don't know what you're learning now that's going to be useful in the future.
Yeah.
Like when I was selling sweets, I didn't realize bundles was going to be very profitable 30 years later. I didn't know I was going to need to understand about VAT. And like, I think the great thing with an Amazon business is, for a lot of people, the Amazon selling business won't be their last business. It will be the first business. But the lessons you'll learn from the Amazon selling business, you'll just guarantee, if you do another business in the future, some of those will be useful. Some of the things you learn selling on Amazon will be very valuable for a different business that you do in the future. And like, there's a lot of pros to selling on Amazon, but there's a fair few cons as well. And like, some people can create a proper grown-up business out of it. But a lot of people are going to be just creating the business as a side income. And like, that's one of the reasons I sort of want to do software, because I'm technology and enjoy doing software, and that's what I've always done. But with a selling business, it's quite difficult to make an asset. Like, it's very much a cash flow business. Like when I stopped selling 4 years ago, it took about a year for me to sell out of all my stock. But then the money was gone. That was it. There was no income coming in once I stopped doing it. And like, yeah, I could have outsourced. I could have. So I had a warehouse, but I got rid of the warehouse. But I could have got a warehouse manager in to run the business. I could have moved it to a prep center, but I wouldn't call selling on Amazon necessarily passive income. You can make it semi-passive, but if you want to be doing like what you're doing now, do you want to be doing that in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
And like one of the great things with Amazon is like, if you want to create an asset, you want to probably go to do private label, or you build up a wholesale business, you build up those relationships, you build up your actual processes. So you're not necessarily, it's just going to sound very cliche. So you're working on the business rather than working in the business. So you're actually creating a business that's an asset that has value. Like just buying and selling, yeah, you can make a lot of profits out of it, but you're not creating a sort of a valuable business as such. So if you want to do that, great, put the money aside, squirrel it away and do something else with the money, create investments, so you get other passive income coming in. Or the other thing with Amazon is there's a lot of other things you could do. Like you could start a prep center that would have like, you'd be creating an asset. You could do courses, like you could do a mentorship. Like even with mentorship, a lot of that is like you're being paid by the hour rather than creating an asset. And you can make a lot of money, obviously, out of doing it. I know a fair few people that have made sort of 7 figures just doing mentorship. Or like the route I went, I created software. So with doing software, you've got cash flow coming in, but you're actually building an asset that's got value as well. So the business itself has got value. I sort of got off on a bit of a tangent here, but
no, that's absolutely right. I mean, obviously, I don't want to spoiler alert what you're going to be talking about so much. But what I find interesting that you've said there is, just before starting Amazon, when, the sandbox came in on Google and all the updates and everything like that, you'd obviously had a very profitable enterprise that was an asset that could have been sold, that you didn't take the opportunity on, 7 figures. Sorry, I'm not trying to rub salt in the wounds out, but would you say that, again, that fueled maybe that need to be able to build something tangible? I mean, don't get me wrong, Amazon nowadays, even on the reseller side of things, it is easier to build an asset to sell than it was probably 5 years ago, because Amazon's evolved over that period of time. But was that a contributing factor, that need of a lesson, a very expensive lesson to learn?
Yeah, I suppose that wasn't the lesson there, because I had built an asset before, but I sort of, I kind of took it for advantage. I thought it would just keep growing without me putting the work in that it needed. So I'd say always looked at building an asset. That's probably not true, but I'd like to think I've always looked at trying to build an asset with business rather than just a cash flow business. It's
sorry.
Because I think one of the nice things with the Amazon business is I think it's a fantastic learning ground, and you can take it. Like I do know people that have 7 and 8 figure selling businesses, and like to get to that point, they've gone down the warehouse route. They've got staff, they've got relationships with sort of manufacturers, and like one of the nice things, I remember one of the guys that has done this. We started probably at a similar time. We were both doing Argos with toys in the back of your car or back of the van. And then you had much more I think when we started out, I think I was like ahead of it, sort of sales wise as such. And I remember saying to him, like, give it a year, you'll be selling more than I am. And he was like, no, well, and he did. But that's what he's focused on. He focused on doing sort of wholesale, getting his warehouse and sort of progressing it that way, whilst I was just I kept doing it OA, RA, but my focus is on software. And I think that's another important thing where you've heard like the saying, like millionaires have 7 income streams on average and what have you. And like I know a lot of millionaires. It's interesting because I used to be like I've been around for quite a while, and like I used to speak at affiliate conferences and things like that, and I've seen how different people are speaking then, how they've progressed and what they've done. So I've like friends of them on Facebook, and like I've seen a lot of people have like big exits, like millions.
Yeah.
I've only got I think a couple of friends with like $1 billion exits, which is just like insane.
Wow.
And what I found is a lot of millionaires, yeah, they have sort of multiple income streams, but most of them that I know have made their first million from one.
Yeah.
They haven't. It's so like you see. So I think you can see they say, "Oh, you need to have 7 income streams," and like that's not often the case. Where diversification is great, but actually focusing on one thing, build the one thing first. Focus on that, and then after you've made one thing, when you've sort of either freed up the time or whatever, then you can look at other things. So it's very easy to see, like, sort of really sort of somebody's chapter 10 is different to your chapter 1. I think that's another cliche as well now. So like that's one of the reasons I think sort of SellerAMP has been successful is this has been my focus for like 4 years now. This is what I've done. And yeah, okay, I'm deviating a little bit.
No, that's right. It's fascinating. And I think you're absolutely right. It's very easy for somebody to give advice in the situation that they're in that moment in time, i.e. a millionaire with 7 income streams, to tell someone that's just starting out, I'm a millionaire because I've got 7 income streams, or that type of thing. So you have to be able to look at someone at where they are at what point in their journey, and definitely for that first period of growth in whatever you're doing, even if it's at a point when it's later in life, even if you've already done businesses at first, before, you have to have that period of laser focus before you move on. I mean, it's a little bit controversial. I have several income streams out of selling on Amazon, not only selling, but other different areas, could be as much as 7 in itself in that. I can't say I've ever really counted them, to be honest, but does that count as 7 income streams, or does it count as 1 because it's Amazon? There's all these different types of things. And I think it's subjective how you look at it.
It is, I don't think there's like one sort of right answer that fits everybody.
No.
It's like when I had my other websites before, the websites themselves would have like multiple streams that have like affiliate income. And if you class affiliate income as one income stream, or as affiliate income from Amazon, affiliate income from Firebox, from eBay, are they different income streams?
You can overthink it to the nth degree. Definitely.
Yeah, you can.
And then you end up not doing anything. Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think that is key there. Definitely a golden nugget. And whatever you are doing at whatever period of time, make sure you focus on that, establish it, and then branch out from there. Try not to get distracted by the shiny object syndrome within this world of online selling. It is so prevalent. There's always someone talking about the hot new thing, whether it's AI or crypto or NFTs or whatever it was at the time. There's always going to be a hot new thing, but generally the people that are OGing it, the people that have been in the same thing for a bit or stay in the same thing, there's a reason why they stay in the same things. There's no such thing as Amazon being dead. Even, on the selling front, it's never going to die. It's never been dead. And, all these different types of things. Just checking a few people, because we've had a few comments coming in. Dan says, keep talking, Al. Let's extend this show. You know me, I can talk forever. I could probably, with you, Al, I reckon we could be on here till like 8 o'clock tonight. So maybe we'll do that one day. We'll have I can't do it today, but we can have a mammoth session on that. Hayden said, very inspiring for sure, turning an idea into a big business. And he's also loving the shit on the walls talk, which we all appreciate that. Definitely. Jamie's joined us as well. Hi, Jamie. By the way, I'm looking all over the place. I'm looking at different lots of comments. Sean said, highly recommend SAS. Even their app on the mobile phone is awesome. Sean's a big RA, so I know how much he appreciates the software from that point of view. I think what's really interesting, actually, because I've always seen you as an innovator, Al. Going back to that time when I knew you as a seller and being, a seller at the same time, I always remember, and it's funny you did it. One of the things, if someone had asked me, what's the one thing you remember about Al? And I remember thinking at the time, wow, that is such a good idea, because I knew it was going on in America, but it wasn't really being adopted here. Was when you hired the shopper, gave them a van, sent them out, and really targeted the RA side of things, which obviously probably was one of the reasons why SAS was born in its first, because it was a mobile app just to start with, wasn't it? And
we actually launched all three at the same time. But yeah, it's.
Oh, really? Okay, so it was. Yeah. I think that was the one that came to the forefront. Certainly to start with.
Yeah, yeah. When we launched, there's a few profit calculators out there. We wanted to. We didn't want to just be like. We created it for us, and like when we launched, there was no mobile app out there. There was no web app. There was no extension that worked on other sites apart from Amazon. So we wanted to be different. We wanted to be different. So, but yeah,
yeah. So I remember thinking that at the time, because that was that was an American strategy. To be able to hire us. Well, sorry, not saying it was exclusively an American strategy, but it was definitely one that was talked about, in my opinion, more on the American side of things and being implemented on the American side of things. But what I was going to say is, do you get when you come up with these innovative ideas, where would you say that you get them the most? Is it inspiration? Is it through doing it yourself and having that analytical kind of mind and process that kind of has to pick the process apart and seeing how you can do it? Would you say it's that, or is it seeing someone else to do it and how you can make the world a little bit better by doing it yourself and putting your own spin on it? What is it essentially?
Like ideas come at really random times. Like if I've got a software from, I kind of have like multiple threads going in my head. So I'll be thinking about different things while I'm doing something else. So it drives Alison crazy at times. We'll just be we could be going out, we could be eating, and so I'll say, "Ooh, I've just thought of something." That I'll either go to the computer, jot it down, or write it down on my phone. So I used to have one of those waterproof notebooks that I have in the shower. So I used to get ideas in the shower and I'll jot something down. So it really is random. But like one thing I do, I walk a lot. Like I've maintained 10,000 steps a day now for about 4 years. 4 years, something like that. And like on my walks, like I used to do walk and talks. I used to talk to customers and what have you. But I think a lot when I'm walking. So I've got various notebooks. I used to always have big physical A3 notebooks, which I jot things down on. Now I'm typically on my phone or on the computer. But one of the nice things about being sort of like a techie is like I can have ideas and I can also implement them. And this really does work well with the software wise, where I can think of like, yeah, that would kind of work. Like this is much more early on, where it's like, here's an idea, I can get it implemented on the same day. And we also like when I get sort of customers like emailing us, giving us ideas, it's fantastic. Where I'd like to think of myself as innovative with ideas, but I haven't been selling for 4 years, and like obviously things change. So now like all the sort of how we've grown sort of SellerAMP is like initially it was from our own personal experience, but now it is like getting suggestions from other sellers. So there's like all the different ideas that we put in there. And I will do.
Sorry, Karen.
I will go a bit about how we develop, what the development path is, how we've got to where we are. Because like I know if there's any techies out there that want to learn about how you develop software, I will touch on that.
Yeah, definitely. I want to cover that side of things. But just before I do, has everyone still got me? I know that might be a stupid question if I've lost my feed. I seem to have lost my feed on one side of things. Obviously, I can still see you and you can still see me. I just want to check we're still going. I think we are. I think it just might. I think I've lost the internet.
You've just been a black screen. I thought that was normal.
Oh, yeah, that's it. The whole time. You haven't been able to see me. It's a little glitchy. Yeah, I think Elon's doing something with his satellites or something.
Are you Starlink?
Yeah, we're Starlink. We had to. Yeah. So, and it's funny.
We see them go over every now and again. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, all my data's up there. Give us a wave next time they kind of fly past. But yeah, it's really funny. Paul, who's on there, hi Paul, by the way, he was asking me for my kind of unbiased review of Starlink and what I think. And for what we pay, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Sorry, I know the Elon supporters will probably come after me for that. But again, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be, because we dedicated everything business onto the Starlink links. This is technically, it's a conversation you can have with Matt, you know, in October about that side of it. But yeah, it's not been as good as I thought it was going to be. It's dropping out. We lost it for a full 2 days last week as well. So yeah, but this is the first time it's kind of played up a bit on a live. So apologies guys, as you know, the usual drill, because we live on a private road and that's why we had to get it, because we can't get fiber, even though everyone else around us got like 1,000 meg. We can't get it.
That sounds a bit posh.
No, it's not.
A housing estate.
No, we actually do live on a housing estate, but we have a service road. But I've decided to do a Mrs. Bouquet and call it a private road instead. That's my element to it. So yeah, it's not that we're in the middle of nowhere or anything like that. But you know, if you're watching on the replay, if there's anything that you missed for some technical reason, it doesn't show any of the glitches. So please bear with us, because I think you'll agree it's like a really fascinating chat. So we'll move on to the software development side in a bit, because it's definitely one of the ideas. It's definitely one of the areas I wanted to focus on, because it's not talked about a lot. But just before we do, I've got 2 final questions on what we've already talked about. Is obviously you've had lots of experience in different areas. You worked for the man, worked in financials, you've worked for IBM, you've worked for yourself, you've been a seller, you've implemented processes, you've built software. If you could, what is there any of them that you prefer? Because obviously now that you're obviously been in SaaS for the last 4 years as well, we haven't even got onto that point, but running a business like that requires a really high level of networking, marketing, customer relations, building a whole new bunch of level of skills. But is there anything that you enjoy the most out of what you do, have done in the past, or are doing now? And does that have an impact on how you do it?
I enjoy creating things. I enjoy sort of creating things and creating solutions. And for me, sort of software is ideal, because I enjoy like the technical, like the mathematical, even though software isn't necessarily mathematical. But I enjoy being able to create something from nothing. And like, to me, that's what software is. So that's where my passion is the creation. I like, when I've got a bit more time, I'm actually going to learn how to do welding. So I want to do some sort of like arty things, but I'm not very artistic. So I want to mix the digital world and the physical world.
Well, that's really interesting, actually. A guy I have a lot of respect for in the celebrity world is Daniel Day-Lewis, and you know, he only does every time he makes a film he wins an Oscar, you know, top of his game in acting. But I don't know if you know, he's also a cobbler.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So he actually lives in Florence, and whenever he's not making films, he's a cobbler. He actually fixes people's shoes. He makes shoes, fixes them. He's a cobbler in his area, because he has that extra level of, you know, he's a creative person, obviously, in the way that he acts and his art and everything like that. But yeah, on an everyday basis, he's a cobbler. He likes the manual development and creation side of things. And it's funny when you said that about the welding, that must be a similar sort of thing. It's not, everyone thinks that you always want to be, you know, tech talk and do this and do that. But there's something very satisfying about manual work and seeing, you know, the progression of nothing to creating something. It must be that element. I don't have that skill, so that's why I'm asking.
Let's say like software is like what I'm good at, and I do enjoy the creation process. And I'm not artistic in a sort of like being able to paint and draw sort of wise, but to do digital art, and like I'm thinking like a steampunk, like being able to weld and do a metal frame and then mix it digital and stuff like that. But anyway, that maybe I'll about my hobbies automation. That might be my next hobby.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely look forward to seeing the progression on that. I would like to see a mashup of it, of all those skills, you know, coming together for sure. So yeah, that was asking what it was, and then the other part I want to move on, which will take us into the development side of things to chat about that, is when it comes to your skill set. And you know, we've already talked about how you've developed the skills over the years, albeit through education, manual kind of experience, practical experience, and things like that. One of the things, I actually think you're a little bit of a unicorn in this world, where you are that person that has that level of understanding, or at a technical level, plus but being able to implement it, and then also the business side of it. You very much remind me of working with, how it would be to work with you is probably how it's to work with someone like Johnny, who I know you've met in person, that has that kind of balance of, a lot of those technical and practical skills as well. With everything that you do now, and I know that you've still very much been involved in the business at a very high level until recently in the practicalities of the business, you're going through a stage of outsourcing and doing certain things in the business. When you're doing that, when you come out of the creative development side, what part of the business do you need to switch the hat on to and can you flip between those sides of the business quite easily, or is that a struggle?
Yeah, it certainly can be a struggle. It's like going from it's like over the weekend I've been doing P&L and forecasts and stuff like that. Like I'm still wearing the accountant hat, which I need to get rid of that hat. What it's like in business. You wear when you start off, you wear so many different hats. You've got to have so many different skills that over time, unless you've got a shitload of money to begin with, then you can hire a big team or get investment and hire a big team. But normally, like a lot of us, when you start something aside, you wear lots of different hats, and switching from one hat to another hat, it does take time. Like if I'm doing sort of development here, then I need to switch off and do accounting or whatever. You've got your time it takes to go take your brain from one process to another process. But it's also got the big advantage, like when you're a sort of solopreneur as such, or the one developer or under the team, is when you've got a bigger team, then you need management, then you need to be able to communicate, and then you waste time that way, or not necessarily waste, you need to spend time managing and communicating with people. So it kind of slows things down initially while everybody all the cogs connect to each other. But in the long run, it's going to be better because then you can have more people working on something. Not sure if that answered the question. But
no, definitely. But
yes.
Are you a control freak? Maybe I should be asking Alison this actually. Do you struggle to let go of those side of things?
I can do. It depends what it is. And at times I'm it'd be faster for me to do it myself than it would be to document it and tell somebody else about it. So I certainly have those ones. Certainly with SellerAMP, I take a lot of things personal. If somebody's not happy, I think at the end of the day, you've got to take responsibility for if it's your business, the buck stops with you as such. You've got to take responsibility. And I think a lot of people have a job. If something goes wrong, it's good to have somebody else to blame. That's one of the nice things about having a 9 to 5. You're not responsible for it, and at 5 o'clock you can leave it and go home. When it's your own business, you can't. You're 24/7. So one thing I try and do is for all the shit, I will take responsibility. It's buck stops with me. When something good things happen, then I will try and say a customer says thank you for that feature or whatever. Then I will try and put the positive onto the team. Whoever sort of created that, I will try and put that onto the team so they don't get the crap.
Yeah,
that's what the family gets. But I want to put the positives onto the rest of the team. And I think that's just one of those from been doing this for years. If you're working in a team, getting the actual praise. A lot with developers, a lot of developers don't even never see the customers. That's one of the nice things about being the position I'm in. We meet the customers. I want to meet the customers and not learn from them. But when we get the good stuff, that gets sort of I say passed down. Down's the wrong word, but passed to the sort of the team members. Well, when we get the crap, then
I think
I give that to the life.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, actually, Alison's going to be coming on. So Al's good lady wife is going to be coming on to Nevermind a Buy Box in a few weeks as well, from a different perspective. So, you know, future guest alert, Alison's going to be coming on talking about a couple of things about, you know, being in the kind of not at the forefront of the business, you know, the back end and covering that side of the business, but also I'd love, you know, I really want to talk to her because I get asked this question a lot. And whilst we are rarer, you know, not everyone does it. I think people do like to see a bit of an insight into it, is how married couples operate in a business together, because it's not, you know, you got to have a strong marriage to be able to do it, and got to have a strong business for the marriage to be able to do it. So it's quite an interesting topic for discussion. So Alison's going to be coming on and joining us in a couple of weeks to talk about that in the future. So I'm really looking forward to that, you know, from that point of view. So one for the diary, guys, definitely.
Yeah, not sure I am looking forward to that one.
Maybe don't tune in that day, Al, you know, and Matt as well. You guys tune out and we'll talk. We can just, your ears can burn in private, definitely. So going on to the development side of things, it's not every, you know, it's not, we talked about all the different areas, Amazon being the perfect gate, which I completely agree with. I meant to say at the time, Amazon is the most unique gateway experience for, it's most people's first experience of business, and it really gives you the opportunity. And again, arbitrage, that's why I say, you know, regardless of whatever you think about the model, it really does expose you to so many different areas of business all at once that it can almost be a little bit overwhelming, but it's a good preparation for any type of business that you want to go into in the future. So obviously you had the experience on the development side of things. You had you know, all of these different areas that you could pull together to move towards building something that obviously has become your main focus now. So what was the process of starting? How did you have to develop that development process? Because it was just you to start with. We've talked about you've brought other people in, you're bringing them in. But what is that development process like? How hard is it? You know, how challenging was it to go from seller to software developer and founder, and then moving that into the market and growing it from there?
Like I sort of started this software basically selling on Amazon was my full-time thing. Once I'd proven the concept that it could work, I was in a position where I could commit as it like full-time hours to it. So then the software I started creating was initially my side project. And like with a lot of people, the Amazon selling is the side project to a job. Mm-hmm. And like to me, it was my software as a side project to the selling business. Like I won't go into all like the technical side of things of what you need to be able to develop software, because like you can't just sort of I'm gonna start coding today and immediately start coding this.
Yeah, of course.
But like I did software engineering at university, but like a lot of education, some of it was useful, but a lot of it wasn't useful. But I think when I wanted to get a job in computers, and the only way you could get that was a piece of paper saying I've got a degree in computers. Mm-hmm. So, but again, it's another way in hindsight. There's a lot of things I learned at university about software creation that came in handy. At the time, I thought it was pointless me learning this stuff, but it did come in handy later down the line. And I think, again, like a lot of business things, what you'll be doing now might seem a bit pointless, but you're learning something that will or could come in. Some of it will be handy in the future. So I think nowadays with the internet, if you wanted to learn how to do software development, there's so many good resources online. It's crazy. And like, well, it's like with Amazon and stuff. There's so much free content you can learn from, and there's paid content as well. Software's the same, and like with anything, you will learn more by doing than you will by reading a course. And because actually, it's quite funny. I learned programming sort of at a young age. Well, I said there's ZX Spectrum, which old people will remember, most people probably won't, which is like Clive Sinclair's computer. And I learned programming on that. And one of the ways I learned programming, you used to buy physical magazines, and they had a code in them. So you type in the code from the magazine, And half the time it wouldn't bloody work because there'd be a bug in it. So I actually learned coding by debugging the code I'd entered from a magazine that way. And again, it's just, you learn so much more by doing something than you'll ever learn by listening to somebody telling you.
Yeah, so, and do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy solving the problem?
I do when it's solved, not necessarily when I'm trying to solve it. Not when
you're doing it.
But when it's solved, yeah, it depends what it is. There's a lot of satisfaction from sort of solving something afterwards.
Definitely. But I was going to say, we've got Callum, another software owner, obviously, who owns Arbitrage, yeah, I couldn't quite remember at that point. We've had Callum on before, by the way, guys. So obviously scroll down, and if you're watching this on the replay, had a really fascinating chat with Callum a few months ago on Nevermind the Buy Box about the development of, you know, from seller again to software owner and operator. And I think what's really interesting is I think probably being a little bit modest there in terms of, I think there's so many sellers that will look at certain areas of extra income in this business. Personally, for me, software is definitely the most difficult to be able to not only create, but then, you know, some people can create amazing software, but it can never, you know, it doesn't mean that that's guaranteed success. You have to develop all of these other type of skills, you know, and as someone who has a tiny little bit of experience of it, you know, with what will be, you know, be stocked in the future, not only do you have to get over the hurdle of developing the software, which, by the way, guys, is not easy. It never goes to plan. Whatever you think's going to happen doesn't happen. It's expensive. It's tiresome. You know, all of these different types of things, and you know, it stresses you out and it gives you challenges and things that you never thought that you were going to face, all of which we're experiencing at the moment with B stocks. You know, when we very naively said, yeah, it'd be out in 3 months, and you know, here we are kind of 6 to 9 months later. But so you've built it, it's been, you know, people are talking good about it. Sorry, that's terrible English, but you know what I mean. People are very positive about it, and now you're looking at the point where you're like, okay, we've got to this point. Where would you say the next level? Because obviously one thing we haven't spoken about is obviously the dreaded, you know, COVID, and that kind of set you really off course in terms of a big change in your life, because the last time I physically met you in person, you were talking about moving to America, based in the UK. And Alison is obviously American, and you wanted to move over the pond, and you chose to do it at a time when the whole world fell apart, essentially, which was an added stress. And I think there was a period of time you were homeless, weren't you? Know, or you know, was it sofa surfing or something because of COVID?
Yeah, homeless just sounds a little bit extreme.
A bit extreme, yeah.
But yeah, we moved over. Literally, we moved like a week before everything shut down. Mm-hmm. It was quite good because on the way we always upgrade our flights really cheaply because nobody was flying. And then we went to San Diego. Our initial plan was to visit people for a month, then move to Texas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went out for one meal, and then the world shut down. Mm-hmm. And we were staying with Alison's sort of brother, and so we were homeless in La Jolla, and like La Jolla, San Diego is a really nice place. And this has got like, yeah, it's a really sort of nice place to get stranded.
So like first world homeless.
Yeah, but like so it's a little like 1-bedroom flat below them. So we stayed there for 3 months. But it's quite a lot of ways it was good for us because like if there was closed, what could I do? I know I can stay in and code. So I coded and I walked. And like there's a bunch of sort of features because we released in the October, the sort of SellerAMP in the October, and then we moved over the following March. So we'd only been sort of live for 5 months, and yeah, so the first 3 months we were homeless, sort of coding and sort of developing software.
But what was really interesting, I know that there are a really select amount of people in this world that their businesses flourished because of COVID. And I don't know if I'm assuming too much here, but I would think because of that, of what happened in the time that it happened and the development of the business at that time, would you consider yourself to be one of the people who COVID kind of did you a little bit of, without being callous, COVID did you a favor?
It's like yes and no. You've got to make the most of any situation. Like Alison, so when she moved over to the UK, I feel like, oh, what do you prefer, the UK or the US? And she had a really diplomatic answer. It's like, it's what you make the most of. Like, yeah, there's advantages to be in the US, there's advantages to the UK. It's what you make of it. But like, I could quite easily look at a negative. Like, I had a warehouse full of stock, which I sold before I moved. As soon as COVID hit, all that stock probably doubled in value.
Yeah.
So some people got some really good deals out of it, and one of them might be listed, or two of them might be listed to this now. I won't say names of who bought these things, but they got some decent deals. So initially, it's like, oh, all my stock just doubled in value. I just sold it off really cheap. But it gave us the opportunity to focus on developing software. I remember like the alerts panel was done on the kitchen. So I basically bought a stool, and most of the coding was done on like a kitchen. It was only it's a 1-bedroom little flat, so most of it was done like on a bar stool in the kitchen. So I like. Yeah, it helps. I had more time to focus.
Yeah,
but it's from a growth point of view. Probably didn't help us grow the business at the time, but it did help us develop the software. It gave us sort of focus time as such. But yeah, you can see there's positives and negatives in everything.
Of course. Yeah, I think that's a really balanced answer. That you can't always put it down to one thing. It's a culmination or that compounding effect of it. Something you said there just kind of caused me to think of this is when we've been talking about, I mean, gosh, we're already an hour in, and I want to be really respectful of your time, by the way, Al. I know you've got, so much to be getting on with. But one of the so we won't be too much longer, guys. I know you want to all hear Al forever, and Al's going to be coming back on hopefully at some point, and we can have these chats on. And one of the things when we spoke, one of the things you said you wanted to get back involved on, now that you're starting to outsource things a little bit more, is coming back into the communities a little bit more, and kind of being more involved on not necessarily the seller side of things, but obviously, networking with sellers more and helping in the community more. That's one of the big things that you want to be able to do. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because I don't believe big success can come without pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I think if it everybody has luck and that type of thing. But as this was going on, COVID was developing, the opportunities that were coming, SAS was growing, all of these, but you were obviously getting to a point where you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone, doing things that you hadn't done before. Like I said, marketing, networking, not necessarily networking, because I know you've done that, but marketing of that type of business. And you've got experience in lots of different areas on business. But was there anything in particular that you were kind of dreaded doing, you didn't like doing, that you had to kind of suck it up? And once you did you enjoy it? Or, what were the new skills that owning and operating SAS brought to your kind of businessman portfolio?
There's quite a lot of different ones. Like a lot of it are extensions of things I've done before. Like you're doing accounting is a bit different for doing SAS. Doing sort of say, forecasting. Like managing a team. Like I remember got a running joke with Alison there. It'll be finished in 6 months, and like you'll appreciate this. So John, it was it'll be real rough. I was in 6 months. Yeah, we'll finish in 6 months, and we'll do this and do that. And I've been saying that we finished in 6 months now for about 4 years, and some things take longer than you expect, and other things come in, and other ideas and features and what have you. So this probably goes back not to being a control freak as such, but actually being able to outsource because my previous business, I outsourced all of it.
Yeah.
And that went pop because I lost the passion and I couldn't bring it back. This one, I've gone the other way where I'm outsourcing now, but there's a lot of things I should have outsourced earlier. So I've been sort of taking on a team for the last 5 months, and like it'd be really sort of in the longer term, it'd be really good. But these 5 months, it's like it feels like it's slowed me down where I'm spending so much time with the team and that I haven't been able to do sort of development things and other things. So, but in the long run, it'll work. And in hindsight, should have done that earlier. But like, yeah, so it's various really. Like I haven't like we have grown very rapidly. Like we took on 2 partners in the US, Miles and Warner, and like kind of call them the kids. They're super smart, half my age. Both of them have written, well, it's college over here rather than university, but both of them created 7-figure Amazon selling businesses whilst they were at university.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whilst I was at university, I created a little site that made a few dollars a day, but it's like,
yeah,
it's, and I think the opportunity now is amazing. Like,
oh, absolutely.
I reckon in 5 years' time, I will know more millionaires in their 20s than I do in their 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be by a small margin; it'll be by a huge margin.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's something we do with our children. We're not too strict on the schooling side of things. In terms, don't get me wrong, we're very fortunate. I'm so grateful to have 2 children that love going to school, love learning, and do very well at school. But as parents, Matt and I, very much, if we're going to push anything, which we don't tend to push anything, it tends to be that building your own business, that type of thing. I've already said to Max, my son, who is 12, nearly 13, I've said to him, look, I'm going to hire someone to edit videos, and that's soon. Going to hire in the next couple of months. I'll give you 3 months to learn how to edit videos. If you so choose if you want to know how to do it, give you 3 months to learn how to do it. And if you do, I'll pay you exactly the same money I'm going to pay someone else to do it. And it will go into a bank account, and, you know, obviously he can't spend it now or whatever, but it's about developing those skill sets in younger people, which they have the opportunity to be able to do. And I have no worries about my children for the future, because, you know, they're kind of smart anyway, which is good, you know, and I'm very proud of them for that. But at the same time, I'm so excited for their future, for the opportunities that they will have in front of them, what they can build as businesses. And, you know, that it kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, it's like there's so much information out there. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. It's only going to get even more with the AI side of things. That's interesting, actually. I've one of my questions on my list. With the AI side of things, how do you think that's going to impact not only your business, but business in general? Because as a self-confessed nerd, you said it yourself, you know, tech side of things, I presume you've paid a lot of attention to that and have thought about how it can impact your business. What are your thoughts on that, and where it might lead us in the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a big question. Yeah, it's going to have a massive impact on a lot of different businesses. Like we started to use it sort of in the development side of it, but I want to get more into the sort of lower level AI rather than the sort of user level AI as such. But yeah, that could be a whole different conversation. But yeah, it's going to have a big impact on a lot of different businesses, and it's one of those. It will have a positive or negative impact depending on if you take hold of it. Like if you put your head in the sand, it will have a negative impact. If you sort of harness it, you'll have a positive impact on your business. Like, will it take some people out of jobs? Yeah, but if those people adapt, it could certainly sort of help people in their jobs as such.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be really transparent about this. You know, when it first came out, I thought we were heading to Terminator. You know, kind of. I grew up in the 80s watching 80s films.
Hey,
you know,
we still might.
Yeah, exactly. So naturally, you're naturally going to go down that Terminator kind of view, about it. And it might still happen, but I've sort of calmed down and got over myself a little bit at that point. And I'm kind of excited at the prospect of what it can bring for the future, and how it can impact the world in a positive way. I think it's very easy to focus on the negative, but presumably what it's going to be able to do for medicine and technology and all these different types of things. Are you someone I'm probably assuming again, but are you excited at the prospect of what it can bring for the future?
Yeah. I'm gonna, yes.
Yeah, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, there's no much further to add on that. Okay, so a couple of final questions, because like I said, I want to be respectful of Al's time, and I want him to come back in the future and talk about different things. Obviously, this was just a bit of an overview of that initial area of your history and your journey and developing from seller to software founder. One of the things that I wanted to ask, were there any similarities in the roles, particularly with selling on Amazon and developing software for Amazon, that kind of surprised you? That you obviously, I know that you could choose a combination of all the skills that you'd built up over the years, but were there things that were during the process that were similar? And if they were, did they surprise you, or was it a completely different ball game?
Like the business side of it is obviously there's lots of similarities between on the business side. Like dealing with Amazon from a technical side is a bit different, and also like Amazon and sellers, you've got the Amazon seller relationship, which is always the best. They sort of actually communicating with Amazon, whether we don't use the Amazon API anymore, as I explained earlier, but we still communicate with Amazon in different ways. And like we use AWS, which like AWS is like the amount of features in there is just insane. But AWS support also isn't particularly good either. I think it is, well, depending on how much you pay them. But I remember we had to sign up and pay them to basically delete something that we couldn't delete because of their system. But so that was like,
that sounds like such an Amazon thing.
But yeah, it's like software is very. Actually, one thing I will touch on a little bit is like because I know people that are interested in doing sort of software.
Yeah.
Like assuming you can write software, because I'm not going to go into learning how to write software, anything like that. Like one of the most valuable things you can have is understanding the problem. Like if you get an Amazon seller that knows software, they're super valuable for if you're creating Amazon software, and that's why like people like Carlton, sort of Max from the other one, Norm. Sorry, Max. You got Norm. Like they were sellers before they created the software, and like with your Johnny as well. And that is so valuable. Of like, because think from a seller's point of view and a development point of view is like,
that's what I mean. A little bit of a unicorn. You're unicorn people.
So if you get one of those people, whatever you pay them, they're worth it. And this is like with any software, it's understanding the problem. And like the more you can understand the actual problem, the better solution that you can come up with. Like, because one thing I'm sort of doing sort of now is I'm getting invited to join other companies just to advise them on sort of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to move into. But
yes, you said that, yeah.
But which I'm not doing that as an advert to invite me. But
but do.
Well, no, don't. I've not got the time. but like, so if you want to create software, understand the problem first. And if you're not the techie guy, understand how to talk to techie guys, because techie guys, like I think one of my good skills is I'm a good bridge between I can talk tech and I can talk business and I can talk Amazon. So like when we developed SellerAMP initially we were profitable from day one because I didn't pay myself. I didn't pay myself for years. So as soon as we launched, our only expenses were the hosting and keeper. But like once you start paying developers, developers are pretty expensive.
Yeah,
totally. I remember somebody posted on a group the other day of like, if I wanted to create a SellerAMP clone or whatever. Well, first thing is, don't copy somebody else. Have your own ideas. Like, I'm all for competition. I think competition's great. It brings innovation. It moves forward. But
definitely.
You don't want to start just copying something. You want to start like with your own ideas as well. Like, how can I improve on this? What can I do? So make sure like, otherwise, if you're competing with the same products with established products, you're going to really struggle. You've got to have some unique features, and like, you don't want to compete on price, because competing on price with software is just a bad idea. Yeah. Saying that, I know with us, I've always tried to make SellerAMP really good value, and like, my accountant and I've got financial advisors, so you should increase the price of it, which I'm like, anyway, but different story. But understand the problem. If you get your developers involved, teach the developers what the problem is they're solving. Teach them how to be a seller. Teach them like how to be a user of the software you want to be created. So, like with a life cycle for us, so the initial release was about 6 months, but I had about a year's development before that when I was doing the inventory management side, and that all got thrown away in the end. So then, yeah, it's like it was a good year's worth of development. And like, so when we launched in the October, and then we've just for the following nearly 4 years now, we've just kept developing it, kept adding to it. But your initial 6 months, like what do we say, 6 months of full-time development. Like if I was going to launch something else now, paying somebody to develop the software, I'd be budgeting about 100 grand to actually just get to the minimum sort of viable product.
Yeah.
And like, so this is your big difference between selling on Amazon. You can actually start quite cheap. You can start with nothing if you're doing used books and really build up slowly, or if you've got a couple of thousand doing OA, you can then build this up and reinvest your money. But you're kind of profitable selling on Amazon from day one. Thereabouts. With software, you're not. Software, you've got a big investment before. And like, if you can develop it yourself, great. But you've still got a big time investment to get to that stage. So if I was charging for my time, it would have probably been about 2 years till we broke even. Yeah. And like, that's why if you're developing it yourself, if you can do it as a side project, great. That's a really good way of doing it. If you're paying for a team to do it, you need to have money behind you. Actually, and like one thing with developers is like, yeah, you can get really cheap ones on Upwork, and you can get expensive ones on Upwork. But you kind of do you can either get really lucky with who you get, or you get what you pay for. Like if you pay for cheap developers, you're going to get a cheap product. So what can often happen then is you'll release it a little bit down the line, you realize, oh, I've got to start again. And I've seen it so many times in software where if they haven't understood the software process, they've gone for cheap development, they'll get so far, they'll release it, then realize, I can't do it, this doesn't work. They'll throw it away and start again. And then it gets really expensive. And once it gets expensive, then you're going to pass it on to the customer. So it's certainly like, so for the SellerAMP cycle, it started off with just me, and I got Sean, who's a good friend with his games, and he did like the mobile side of it, whilst I was doing the sort of extension, the web, and the sort of the brains as such, for these sort of mobile users as well. So we launched, like did a little bit of marketing before that, but we didn't need that many customers to pay our expenses, because the expenses were fairly relatively low. Like our expenses now are huge in comparison. When we first launched, we paid for Keeper, we paid for AWS. I think our Keeper bill now we pay Keeper hundreds of thousands a year to get a lot of data. But then once we've sort of like, once we've started growing and bringing other people involved into the business. So we've got Miles and Warner, who are fantastic at marketing. And like, I'd always look for somebody who can help. When we launched, we had a 5-year plan. We always planned to be so many years in, and then look for somebody to help with the marketing side of it. Because like, I'm a techie, I know about marketing. I think I could probably do it, but I don't like repeating myself. And marketing is so much about saying the same thing over and over again to more and more people. And that's not me. I'd rather me sort of say something. That's it. Explain it. That's it. But then bringing those two on for the marketing side works out really well. And like now, I say for the last 5 months, we've been bringing on a team from the development side of it. Then what I'd like to get into is that I will do marketing via development. I've got all sorts of different marketing ideas, but I'll be doing it in a technical way. And like some of the things we did before, I launched like a couple of freebie extensions. Basically, it's like marketing to just get the name out there and get the word out there. But so if you're going to develop software, if you're doing it yourself, fantastic. If you pay for a team, you want to get good developers and make sure they really firstly make sure you understand the problem that you're solving, and then make sure the developer actually understands the problem. Because like it's another one I saw, somebody said, "Oh, we're developing this software. We just told our developers to copy that software. Oh, would you like to get involved with us?" And I'm like, "No." Because like there's so much under the scenes that you don't see with software, and like just copying somebody else's isn't going to work. You've got to bring more to the party as such.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. It's such a good example because developing software is very much an iceberg business. What you see on the surface is nothing compared to what lurks beneath, essentially, in terms of that. So top tip there, golden nugget, I think, from Al is this is what I got from it. Either be a coder or be rich, basically, and be able to pay a lot of people to be able to do it for you.
Yeah, it's a big investment to do software, but once it's established and growing, providing it does grow, but it can be very profitable. It's going to be a very profitable business, but it takes a big investment to get it going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think one of the real nice things of software is you can scale it, and like when you scale it, yes. Like when we sort of scale, you have got increased costs, but nowhere near like with probably if Alison was here, she'd be saying, "No, don't say that, don't say that." But like with an Amazon,
see her running through the door in a minute. Yeah. Oh.
Like with like an Amazon business, your profit margin is like 20%. That's a good profit margin if you're buying and selling physical products. With a software business, you've got massive upfront cost, but once you've got rid of that cost, and then you're selling stuff, your profit margin is much higher than your 20%, because like your development cost is a cost. Your running costs aren't as bad because like you're paying for like with those, like I said, you're paying for the hosting. With us, we're paying for data subscription, which is Keeper, and they're both very expensive. But they are relative to the subscribers coming in, and like as a percentage, they're not as high as it would be from like a cost of goods.
And it's like as long as you're always growing, the growth in the subscribers coming in is covering the cost in the growth of the costs for the data and the servers and everything like that.
It's very much a scaling where, like with your Keeper subscription, the bigger you get, the subscription gets slightly cheaper. It doesn't get that much cheaper, to be fair. Once you get over your initial sort of few thousand or whatever, then it drops by maybe 1%. But like with AWS, again, as you scale, it gets less per customer as such.
Yeah, and it was very much something we discussed with launching the business that we did this year, obviously with the education side of the Hive, and I talked to you about this as well, is with that side of things, because there is only so far that business can grow in terms of capacity of being able to service people and in providing a good service and that type of thing. And that's why obviously we wanted to build BStocked alongside of it, because there's infinite growth opportunity with it. The Hive will get to a point where it will have a maximum capacity and that's it, and it cannot be scaled any further beyond that. But obviously BStocked has the ability to be able to grow beyond that. And I'm also, I think, again, something I'd like to add to what Al has so eloquently talked about it as well, is partnerships and how important they are. Not everybody can be all things to all people, and nor should they be, because obviously the more you're doing, the more level of your input gets diluted. And I'm so fortunate to be able to have worked with people over the years that bring different skills to the party, essentially. And you've said it yourself, with the marketing in the areas that maybe you could have done yourself. You would have been good at it. You would have been all right at it. But, why take the chance, essentially? Building that relationship and networking and having the opportunity to work with people who are good at things is the sensible way to do it. And no, not the sensible, it's the intelligent thing to do.
Yeah, like as I said, from a seller's point of view, it's like you wake up in the morning, you check your sales. Ooh, I've made some sales while I was asleep. I've made money while I was asleep. That's great. And like when you partner and have a team, like they'll be doing things when you're not working on the business, which is it. And like if you, it's very easy to like. So I've certainly made this mistake of like you're working solely on the business rather than actually working on the outside of it and growing the business. So like, when I used to speak at affiliate conferences, I remember I upset the room by saying, like, if you can't sort of step away from your business for a week and it keeps running, you don't have a business, you have a job. Yeah. And that's one thing you've got to be. Okay, you could argue the semantics of that, but that's one thing you're really careful of. Is that you've got to create a business that can run without you, and grow without you. And I'm not there yet. Like at the moment, I'm still very much a kingpin in what we're doing, and I'm involved every day, like 7 days a week. I am working on this. Like, and like Alison's the same. We go out for a meal. We're always talking about business and such.
Yeah.
But like, I'm trying now really to build up the team where. Yeah, I'll still be involved a lot, but I don't want to be sort of like the critical piece as such. And it's one of those being able to let go. It's not easy, and it's
no.
And that is probably one of the hardest things of like sort of being able to not be sort of on it all of the time.
Yeah, I think so.
On an equal measure, when you first start out, you have to. This has to be your number one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also having it at the right moment in your life as well. Like I said, you create your own luck. There's no doubt about it. And being able to recognize opportunity. But when things come at the right point, at a sweet spot, in your life, it's why I'm thankful for the opportunity that's in front of me now with Bee Stocked and everything like that. If that came along when my kids were babies, it wouldn't have been feasible for me to do it, because obviously my babies needed me so much more at that time. Of course they need me so much now, but it's in a different kind of way. So having the opportunity come along at the right time is definitely there's an element of that as well, right?
Yeah definitely. I think the cliche saying you make your own luck is like, yeah, it's you do.
Yeah, it's good for sure. Right. Al, I cannot take up any more of your time because, like I said, we would be talking forever. And I also want you to come back. So we've got other things to talk about as well. And I could have taken that conversation about you and Alison talking about business and things to talk about, but I'm going to dive into that with Alison in a few weeks' time. And we're going to have Alison on, who is Al's wife, and talking about what it's going to be like running a business together, being a married business team as well, which I don't hear a lot of people talking about because it is more on the unusual side of things, obviously, but could be inspirational for anyone that is a solopreneur in their business and they maybe want to bring a partner into the business, which is what you did with Alison, because Alison was a high flyer outside of Amazon essentially before that, wasn't she? So we want to dive into that a little bit more, because I think that's when people start this. I talk to a lot of people, and one of the big goals I hear from both men and women is that goal to be able to bring a partner into the business outside, bring them in, out of the matrix essentially, from their job. So I think that would be a really interesting session.
Yeah, that was never part of the plan. Alison will cover that one.
Yeah, absolutely. We will dive deep into that. Just before we go, love this from Cindy saying, behind every successful businessman, and then my husband has replied, is a business. And then Cindy's follow-up comment is, good luck later, Matt. Indeed. He's he's always in trouble in some way. Just finishing up what Callan said as well, there is Al's a great guy, great software, and been incredibly valuable for the help that you've given him with Arbisource. So, feel free. Like I said, I always want to be guy, I say this every single time. Al's a very busy person, but you definitely, maybe if you've got any questions or anything like that, tag him in the group. Cindy, if you wouldn't mind popping up the SellerAMP Facebook group as well. So anyone that wants to be able to join that and, sort of, you do your updates and everything like that in there, which I absolutely love, about what's coming up, where you're going. There's some networking opportunities as well. So let's just quickly add those in. We've got the dates from Amanda. I know Amanda's watching. Amanda, would you mind popping on the dates for the Seller Festival? I think it is it the 16th, the 15th and the 16th of October?
Sounds about right. So Monday and Tuesday, near the 15th and 16th.
Yeah, so we've got that. And then is it the weekend afterwards or a couple of weekends afterwards you're going to Nottingham for a free event?
Yeah, we're going to, we haven't got the venue sorted out yet. We will do. I think it's going to be a Saturday afternoon. I think it's on the 28th. Like we did one of these in Vegas and we got a good 100 people or something like that. And it was really good. It was really good networking, and it was the biggest bar bill I've ever paid. And I don't think we'll top that in Nottingham because Vegas is really expensive.
Yes, absolutely.
But what we'll put on snacks. We'll cover the event as such. So I'll post a link to get people to register. I'm still working out numbers. And as there's going to be a free bar, it's not going to be. I'm going to need to get names. I don't want a bunch of people just turning up to drink us dry as such. Especially I don't even drink. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll post all that. If I'll grab that off of Alison, or if Alison wants to post it in the group, or Al, if you want to post it in the group, obviously I'll be posting the details of the replay anyway, as well. Do you know what? There's one of the most important questions that I wrote down at the start. That I didn't even ask you, which I'm sure the Amazon world is really curious to know. And is that, do you still do magic tricks now?
Magic tricks? Oh, I didn't really do magic tricks then. But to be honest, that's one of. I think I got a kit, one of those magic sets when you're 6 or 7 or whatever. But that is something I'd love to do. I'd love to go to magician school. And then I remember at our wedding we had a magician and he was great. And I was watching. It's cutting rope and doing cards, and I can work out how we did it. So I would love to do that. So
I'm a bit like that. Whenever a magician's, I'm watching them like a hawk, and I love trying to work out how they do the trick, to the point where whenever they say, "Can I do the trick on you?" I don't want to see them doing it on me. I want to see them doing it on someone else because I want to know how the trick's performed. But yeah, magic definitely for sure. Yes, I know, Hayden. I'm coming. Calm down. Yes, I would encourage anybody, if you are available, especially at that Nottingham one, because there's no no entry. Well, I say no entry, obviously there's going to be a cut off at some point. You're not going to pay for 500 people's drinks. So but we'll let you know about the dates on those at the time. Al, thank you so much. It's been really insightful. Really,
thank you for
been a pleasure.
inviting me on. And
yeah, good catching up. And like I said, for anyone that didn't know you before, they do know you now, and found out a little bit more about that kind of transition from seller to software. I mean, as you guys know, even 90 minutes is more than not enough time to be able to cover everything in depth. So we'd love to have you back on in the future so we can maybe dive into things that maybe people want to hear about a little bit more in detail. But we did get a lot covered in that time. As I spoke about, Alison is going to be joining me. I think it's at the start of October for Nevermind the Buy Box, where we're going to be talking about owner operator married businesses, not just on the married side of things, but obviously Alison does a lot behind the scenes of running the business. So I want to dive into that with her and what impact that's had on the business. So I'm really looking forward to that. In terms of who's coming on next week, I've forgotten. So I'll let everyone know in the group, but I will be here 1 o'clock next week with another guest to be talking about something in this crazy world of Amazon. Just for the YouTube people and everything like that, if you've watched, please leave a comment. I'm sure you agree. It's been really fascinating talking to Al, getting to know him a little bit better. Give us a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe, and whatever YouTube people do, because that means that we're releasing weekly videos now of lots of different, areas on Amazon. And you always get that notification when it comes out. So, any final words? God, that sounds awful. I didn't mean to say it like that. Is there anything? Do you want to just, leave us? Is there any pearls of wisdom? Or is there anything that any type of advice that you want to give to Amazon sellers, or potential software developers in the future?
I should really do a sales spiel, but I'm not going to because I'm not really a salesy person. So I think the best advice is to, I hate to say it, but like take action. Not massive action, just action.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, action. I mean, you'll learn more by more by doing than you will ever by sort of just. You should just not watch things like this, but actually just give something a try and actually do it.
So take action.
I'm sure I could.
It's so effective.
Yeah, I'm sure there's next time I'll have a better one than that.
I don't think you can have a better one than that. I think it's the best bit of advice that you can give. You have to be able to take action in order to see whether something is going to work for you. What we'll also do as well, that anyone that's interested in trialing SellerAMP, SAS, the software as well, we'll make sure that we get a link on the replay video so anyone can give it. Is there presumably a free trial or?
Yeah, 2 week free trial. I suppose the other one is like know your numbers, and that's what SellerAMP provides. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, never mind the buy box is never a sales pitch. So, but we obviously, I'm sure people will be interested to try it. So we'll make sure we get the link on there for anyone that does want to try the software. And like I said, nothing left to say, but thank you, Al. Really appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. So thank you for spending so much time with that. Guys, I will see you next week for more Amazon chat. So yeah, thanks very much, Al. Really appreciate it.
Okay, cheers, folks. Bye for now.
See you later.